Okay. Welcome everybody to the NoDiceNoGlory.com Roundtable for the HMGS CyberCon. I'm your moderator, Tyler Stone, and I'll be joined by Mitch Reed today. We have Mike Tunius and Rufus Devane from Firelock Games to speak to you about upcoming releases and projects. Please make sure that you turn your camera off and mute your microphone. If you have a question, please type it in the chat, and a moderator will ask the speaker during the Q&A session. All right. So we'll start off. Hello, Mike. Hello, Rufus.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hola.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. How have you guys been from, the other end of the country?
Good. We just had a hurricane. That was fun. No, not really.
Yeah, well, so did we. It actually passed you, then it made a loopy loop and came right back where I live too. So
Yep.
Yay for me.
So as far as Firelock, Mike, I know that you guys just wrapped up the Kickstarter.
Yes, we did. Sort of. Not really. I mean, the funding period has ended. The work now begins, or has begun, I should really say.
So you guys are looking to start getting that shipped out. Are you still taking late pledges or?
We will take late pledges. We got to get our pledge manager set up, and we got to get all the little details finalized. And as soon as that's done, it'll be out, just like we have done in all of our previous projects. As soon as it's ready, late backers. We've gotten a ton of people like, "Oh my God, I missed the project." So I know there's a lot of people think, "Don't worry, we will always allow late pledges."
You should have toyed with them a little bit, Mike.
Yeah, just shut it out completely.
Yeah,
like
you should have
sorry.
made him sing and dance. Speaking of that, so you're being a little bit too modest. So
I haven't barely said anything yet. How can I be being too modest?
well, so you set a rather high goal.
Yes.
How long did it take you to meet that goal?
We got it on the first day.
4 hours.
It was
4
4 hours.
hours.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah. The time kind of goes by pretty quick.
Rufus says, "Look, if he wasn't there, it wouldn't have happened like that."
No. It wasn't.
Absolutely not. That's the only reason. Thank God he was here. Yeah, that's fact.
4
Hey, we didn't-
hours, and then how many total folks pledged?
Just over 2,000. 2001. I did a last minute plea on Facebook because for Oak and Iron, we funded at like 199,000, like 900, like literally I think we were $1 or $2 off of 200,000, which is just embarrassing. So I was like, no, can't let it happen again with this. We gotta have 2,000 backers. That was my goal, to get at least 2,000 backers.
Yeah, you got it with like 4 seconds left to go.
Yeah.
The thing, it was crazy.
I was busy
So-
trying to start another Kickstarter account just to beat that 2,000.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. I wanted 2,000 real people, but I still appreciate the gesture.
Anytime.
I'm sure there's a couple duplicate accounts in there. People always do funky stuff with Kickstarter. So, but then there's people who pledge together as well. So I think all in all, we probably got right around 2,000 people, which was the goal. So.
And then as far as the final funding number, I think, isn't it one of the larger or largest of the historical games to hit?
Yes, I've looked it up. I spent a couple hours trying to make sure that's true. But yes, the most funded historical war game on Kickstarter or any crowdfunding platform ever. So that's a super awesome accomplishment.
It's also the biggest one you guys had so far too, right?
Oh yeah, of course. By nature of that statement, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well,
So I know that we cover this a lot on the podcast with No Dice, but for those who very rudely don't tune into that, which I totally understand because we're a mess. This Kickstarter covers, so Raise the Black, the new expansion, and that's going into 18th century, early 18th, like Golden Age of Piracy, correct?
Right. So the big things in there are the Queen Anne's War and then the Golden Age of Piracy. Those are the two big things that are going to stand out from that book. And just talk about it real quick a little bit. So before the Kickstarter, we were kind of going back because we had several book projects that we were thinking about doing because we wanted to keep it manageable. But then I had an attack of sanity, and I realized, well, if we're gonna do all these things anyway, they're gonna fall into the same timetable, especially because of COVID this year, pushing everything back and messing everything up. Because originally we were gonna do a Queen Anne's War book that was just focused on the very beginning of the 18th century, right up to just before the Golden Age of piracy kicks off, right about 1715, and then the Kickstarter was going to be focused only on the Golden Age of piracy, right? Which is why all of the characters that are in the Kickstarter that we had planned are all pirates, with the exception of Maynard. So obviously there's more in the book, but as far as actual models, that's what we had. So those two projects ended up kind of merging into one. So they're going to be one single book with all the same content. In fact, a tiny little bit added. So that I've had a few questions about that. So there's if anybody out there is wondering, that is the state of those projects.
Very cool. Yeah, I know that it had kind of gotten out and around that there was a Queen Anne's War book coming as an intermediary
Yes.
between the two, and that is now all one book.
All one book. Now, and we are going to release a small supplement that's a PDF for some of the in-between stuff that we've already released, like the Braves, for example, and a few other things like that. So there will be something in the Court d'Ivoire already in.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, they're already in on the Force Builder.
Yeah. So that way they're not only on the Force Builder, you can still get them, and then we can put a link in the store to where the Braves are. So if people are confused, you can find your stats for those easily. So, but that'll be probably a month or two down the line when the actual layout is done for Queen Anne's work. Just going to pull things from there. So.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds good.
What list do you think that's going to be coming out that folks are really going to flip out over? Because I have my favorites, but they're probably not yours. But which are some of the ones that you think gamers will just love?
Blood and Plunder players specifically are going to like the Franco-Spanish Expeditionary Forces, I think, which is a really cool list because it's basically, Queen Anne's War. You've got Bourbon, Spain, right? And you've got France. So you've got them working together. So there's one particular instance where they formed a combined group of Spanish soldiers and privateer and like corsairs and boucanier and French troops, and they put all these guys together and went and kicked all the pirates and Englishmen out of the Bahamas. So that force is pretty cool because you could basically have your milicianos and your buccaneers fighting on the same team, which is never been a possibility before. So it's just a cool kind of mixed faction that lets you get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, the Spanish have always been kind of loners in all of the previous books. They don't want to work with anybody.
They don't play nice with anybody except a little bit with the Dutch. Yeah, but
yeah.
But now, yeah. So that list lets you bring French guys in on the mix. So it's pretty cool.
I love those mixed lists, man. And it's just because I like buying some of the more interesting models. So like when the Braves came out, which were amazing sculpts, I'm like, let me see which list I can use these bad boys on. So I really kind of like that. Now, you're not good for my wallet, but it's going to a good cause.
Yeah. Well,
you wear the same T-shirt all the time.
Yeah, I have a closet full of these. I'm like a cartoon character. So.
Like a super.
Like Yosemite Sam.
I actually put a normal shirt on today, and I was like, "Oh wait, I can't. I gotta put my uniform on." So.
Yeah.
And I guess Mitch brought up, you guys plaguing his wallet with constant releases and stuff, but
that's the idea.
Obviously you kickstart a new expansion, you got to have new minis. So you guys are doing plastic for the first time, and you've got the 2-player starter.
That's right. Yeah. So 2-player starters has been something I've been after since we launched the game, really, right? Like my plan, our intention was after the Kickstarter, put something together to get people into the game quickly and easily, right? However, we quickly realized the logistics of that with metal models is very impractical. And we got wrapped up in selling into distribution very early on. So we realized that with that and with the pricing model, it just doesn't work. Like we'd have to sell a starter set, like to basically put 2 army boxes together of what we have now in a rule book or something. Even if it's just 1 army box and a rule book and everything else, and for us to not lose money selling that into distribution channels, I mean that thing would have to be like $200, just for 12 models, a book, and some cards. It's just that's not. And I'm probably exaggerating. It probably be a little less than that, but it's not practical. It's a big, heavy box, and it would be difficult for us to put together. So we realized at that point that we really needed to move into some other medium, be that resin, plastic, something. So ultimately, I think all of us here, and I think most people prefer hard plastic to most things. So we rolled with it, and there we go. So now we're the 2-player starter. It's themed. It's got a super interesting theme that I think a lot of people will enjoy. All those models in there are generic, so even if you're better into the game or you don't necessarily want to play the factions that are in the box, those models can work with anybody except Native Americans and Maroons and stuff like that. But those are still, you can still use them in those lists as allies and such, but as support units, I should say. But so I'm excited about it. I think the community proved that they're excited about it as well, making us the by far our biggest project ever. So, and now it's a matter of just getting it done, which is the hard part.
I thought that was the easy part.
If only.
No.
All right.
The easy part is when the Kickstarter money comes into our bank account. That's the easy part. But then you got to use the money to make all the stuff.
Yeah. You could buy another boat and just escape too.
I could. That's an option.
Yeah, we put a GPS tracker on that thing.
Really?
Yeah. So what I dig about the plastic models is that, and it's something I've always enjoyed about the game, is like, yeah, some of the models were made for a particular list, but here now, with the plastics, as long as I get the sprue for the sailors, the soldiers, I have a lot of flexibility in what I can paint and put on the table.
Right.
What was the decision behind that? To make it easier for the gamer?
Hindsight being 2020 is mostly what it is. It's also a matter of cost, right? So if we're doing plastic molds, are a lot of work and very expensive to put together. So if we would have done something like we did it originally in our Kickstarter, right, where we have a unique set of models for every nationality, that would have been we would have had a lot less variety in this Kickstarter. We would have had like 1 unit and probably covered maybe 1 or 2 factions. We'd cover 1 or 2 factions with 2-3 units, or do like 1 faction per unit or something, which is exciting. It's also since we're limited in the amount we can do, right? We went with more generic models that could work with any faction, that could be built different ways to represent different things. So they work. Part of the idea is that they'll work nicely hand in hand with the metal range we already have. So if you buy a blister of marineros, right, and you throw in some of these plastic sailors, now you've kind of thrown a little bit of Spanish flavor. You fill that unit out. You've got a lot of model pose variety, weapon variety, things like that. So that's the reason we went in that direction.
That's going to help. Just currently the metals, you end up with like an army of clones. You go to try and build an 12-man militia unit or something like that, and you've got 3 of the same guy, or you're going out and buying the European sailors to mix in and shake it up a little bit.
So one of the things I did on the Kickstarter is I where you could order the different boxes, and I just want to go heavy with the soldiers. I want to make a ton of them. So what do you think is going to be enough now for the game? I need like a good 15 boxes of those bad boys.
I think 15 is a good minimum.
15, try 30. 30,
yeah.
30 boxes?
Yeah. I mean, you could do a lot with 1,000 boxes. I mean, there's a lot of options at that point.
And the reason why I ask is I got a ton of sailors, and cannon crew and stuff like that. But I think like, some of the folks in the character boxes and then the soldiers look different. That I think when you finally say, hey, really, what do you want to buy here? I think I'm going to go wild just picking that stuff up.
Yeah, the soldiers, I mean, the soldiers are going to be depending on which faction you play them on, because as usual, just like our previous soldiers, our 17th century soldiers that we did in metal, they will work for every European faction.
Yeah.
They'll also work for not just, there's going to be several unit types. Like, for example, for the Spanish, you'll have Soldados de Avanzada, which are like the frontier troops, right? Because Spain actually had paid full-time soldiers in a lot of really far-flung colonies. They'd typically be poorly trained, poorly equipped, as typical in Spanish colonies in the New World. So they'll have, those will be cheaper troops, but they're still, they're still like 4 points a model, 5 points a model. I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but they're definitely less than the more elite soldiers. And then you'll have, of course, because now the 18th century regulars that are now drilled in the new, and some of the new tactics and techniques that people are using with regular troops become a little more elite. So your average soldier cost bumps up to about 7 points, 8 or even 9 points for some grenadier units, things like that. So the box will make all that stuff. So just there, you've got 5 different unit choices between a few factions. Actually more, like with the grenadiers and some of the lesser, and then you have provincials as well, which are like kind of halfway between militia and regular soldier. They're like, if you know about the American provincial system, they're basically like short-term full-time soldiers, right? So they'll enlist for like a year and go man an outpost somewhere or something like that, right? And then
is the point level going to go up with the new book?
So the points system is the same. So the 18th century stuff works fine with the 17th century stuff if you want to play against it. But yes, I think that people will end up, and we're going to recommend as such, that when the point level will go up a little bit in some cases. Now, oddly, when you go to things like, and in general, I think it works, but it's going to allow some factions that actually have really cheap troops, like the new pirate factions, like the Flying Gang and stuff like that are coming. They'll have some really cheap basic guys because these are not the filibusters and freebooters of the 17th century. These guys are not, as anybody who was listening to Benderson's talk earlier knows, their martial levels were not quite the same. There are some exceptions. Like we have there's every faction. One of the new things, because that the plastic generic sailor sets do, is a veteran sailor unit for every faction now. So it's similar to the boss. The Enterplug for the Dutch. Yeah. So every faction's gonna get a group like that, including the pirates, who their version of that will be roundsmen, right? So basically veterans of the pirate round, where there was some real fighting, not just robbing fishing boats like some other pirates would have done. So there's those guys are there as an option. So you could take a more elite pirate force, or you could go with the full undisciplined wild pirate horde. So for those of you who want to do that, buy lots of boxes of sailors.
So we have 2 questions already, and Eric, I'll get to your question in a minute, but they're already talking about this one from James Monson. Can you go into more details about how the regulars play differently than the other soldier types? That's a good question.
It is a good question, yeah. So before I lie about it, because obviously the soldiers have pretty much been finalized now. That's the thing I've been playtesting the most, and the little bit of I've been able to actually playtest with COVID and all that. Let me pull up one of the platoons here real quick so I don't remember like an old version. If I can find my file, of course. So if not, I'll just go off the top of my head and hope for the best.
Now, I know a lot of people are saying, wait, he created the game. Doesn't he, shouldn't he know this?
No.
I guess you've never played Mike in a demo, have you?
No, absolutely. All right, here we go. I found the British one. We'll go with the British. Okay, so there's no English anymore. So now we're the British for the English. So that's a big change right there. Even though my file literally says English on it, so I have to change that. So let me roll over here to the English Army. Tentatively 1690 to 1750. I gotta tweak that. But so I'll just read the special rules as I have it right now for the faction itself. Okay. So this force's commander may spend 2 command points to issue a platoon action to all units with the expertly drilled special rule within its command range. The controlling player chooses a single type of action, and all units that are in formation and not shaken may take that action, including the commander's unit. commanders for the army list, for the army, this one's going to be pretty universal across all of them. Commanders in this force can also spend their units' actions to like they were command points. So with those units, especially if you're playing larger games, it's going to make sense to put them in like a very small, basic size command sort of unit that's primarily just coordinating stuff, because they play really well in that kind of way where you're just kind of focused on you moving the whole army in unison, which is a new interesting way that they're going to work. I'm going to roll over to the actual regulars unit, right? So here's their stats. Let's give you the whole thing. Tons of spoilers here tonight. So there's 7 points a pop per model. They're trained. They have firelock muskets. They have socket bayonets, which are a new type of weapon. And their fight is 6/6. Their shoot is 6/7. Their resolve is 4. They're expertly drilled. They have fast reload, and they are unwavering. So that's a big change there. And if you don't know what unwavering is, they're basically if they activate shaken, and they can drop fatigue, and then they can activate normally. So even if they activate shaken, they can still take actions that round if they have any left after rally. So
so they don't waver.
They can, because it depends. If you put a lot of fatigue on them, they still will. Because if you still end up shaking, you're still shaking. But if you go down to, if you're able to bring yourself down to 2 fatigue or less, then they can take actions, assuming they had some remaining. You still get the penalty for the fatigue, right? So you still lose your actions. But unlike if you've played the game, you'll know that there's lots of situations where you're shaken and you've got extra actions, but you have to rally, is dedicated, and now you can't do anything else with the rest of those actions. You just got to rally, right? So that's where they get a little improved. So
that's
they're
a very big change.
Yeah,
to the
they're
game.
very, and there's a whole armies in the early 18th century just basically hit a whole new level of professionalism and discipline. Now, of course, that's not the case for all the regulars or all the armies, but especially the non-standard, come from Europe sort of troops. You'll have like I mentioned earlier, the Spanish frontier troops. You'll have the French Marines, essentially, Campagnes de la, they're not actually Marines, but I'm not going to try to pronounce the Company of Marines of France or whatever it translates to. But you'll have a lot of those colonial type troops that will operate differently than their European counterparts. So those will be, and that's, again, you're going to get a lot of variety out of these kits with the different types of units you can build.
Yeah, I know we did a write-up. It was based on an early preview, so offhand, I don't know how much our preview changed from what you've got now, but we did do a write-up on the English Army lists.
Right. Yeah. So it hasn't really changed, I don't think, from that.
Yeah,
if anything changed, it's minor. So
I'm looking forward to playing them. They look like a lot of fun. Just the level of coordination.
You ready for some more questions from the field?
Always bring it.
Yeah. First question is from Anonymous. Is Rufus on the toilet? No, he'd be smiling if he was. I am.
I'd be like this.
Yeah. You mentioned in a previous seminar that making 28 millimeter ship in plastic was a challenge. Do you see yourselves making gallons and larger ships in plastic?
It was a challenge. But not an insurmountable one. It's just a type of thing. It's a very, very new thing for us. And what makes it a challenge is getting it right. Like, there's a lot of, if you've bought lots of models from lots of companies, you'll know that some of them, even if the model comes out nice, they suck. Yeah. There's just such a pain, and then things don't fit together. And so I spent a lot of time dealing with that aspect of it, making sure everything is nice and clean, fits together the way it needs to. It's not a billion parts that are unnecessary to put together. So I tried to cut things and bring things in, and then getting the detail right, and working with, we worked with a new sculptor on the ship, and then getting a new sculptor. Sculptors in general just seem to have trouble with ships. I think it's the curves and the way everything is. I mean, if you look at like when fantasy companies try to make ship models and stuff, it's like a disaster. They're just like, they end up being weird boxes or something like that. So getting the shape of the ship right is obviously really important. and we wanted to add more detail. Since we're doing these kits, we have the opportunity to do a lot more. So since there's a higher level of detail in the kits, like all the rigging and stuff is all going to be in plastic. So there's a lot of little bits and pieces that are different instead of just a piece of dowel, right? For a mast or a spar. Now we're actually casting a piece that's, representative of what that piece would actually look like in a lot more detail. So there's more research to do, more stuff to double check, getting all the parts sized up and everything. But those things, now that we've gone through the process, I know the next one will be easier. And the one after that will be easier, and so on and so forth, because we've got the process kind of sorted out now. That said, I still didn't want to jump into another ship right away on the Kickstarter just in case I'm wrong, because I've been wrong before. This ship took us a year to put together, so the next one could be a year also, for all I know, because maybe there's a new challenge that I haven't foreseen. So it's safer to just leave it out of this Kickstarter. But we do plan on continuing to make plastic ships. I would say we're working on it now, except that I don't have time because we're making all the other stuff. But I already have plans. We already know what we want to do. It's just a matter now of going forward with it once we get all this other stuff out of the way.
So that brings us right into the other question, and it's from Pat. And maybe I'll start to answer this one a little bit. Is two-ship starter a signal that you're moving to focus on ship-to-ship actions? And, I think that's kind of where you live, because we do here in the Mid-Atlantic, we do both, and we do both all the time. So is this and Pat, you could type in here too, is this a marketing focus? But I think playing wise, I think both are extremely popular.
Yeah, that's a great question. So no, we're not shifting the game. I think, to me, the game has always been, like you said, it's been a balance. Like it's the thing is, I think it's that it's such a different thing. Like no other game that I can think of really does both equally like we do, I think. And I'm not saying that as a bragging thing, more just of it to some people it feels like two different games, and it's really not. I think people who play both a lot know that it's the same game. It's just two different ways to play, and it's a very different experience each time. But like the mechanics, when you're playing the game, the mechanics feel familiar. You feel like you're playing, but it does feel like you're playing a different game because the tactics change dramatically, obviously. A lot of the core components of the action management and managing your fatigue and crew and stuff like that's the same, but it still feels like a different game, but it's really not, right? Rules wise, it's the same. And the reason we chose ships is for two reasons. Part of it is a marketing thing. Ships is always, when you put, even if you're not playing with ships, everybody who does demos puts ships on the table because the ships draw people in. That's the one thing. The other thing is that since it's a starter, we feel like having the ships in there, I think a lot of people right now are intimidated by the ship rules, and they'll kind of, the way we've written the rule book and the way we've laid it out presently and the way we tell you is like, okay, play land first so you can get the basics, which makes sense, but but then work your way up to ships. But I think a lot of people stop there and they just end up playing mostly land battles and they skip on the ship part for a number of reasons. So we wanted to make it feel more accessible. We wanted to give people like, hey, here's the ships, here's the rules. This scenario is ship focused, but so play it, because I think it's a thing that a lot of people are missing out on. So I want to give them the opportunity to really jump into that aspect of it.
I was intimidated by the ship rules until I played it, and I said, I'm not going to get a ship for the game. And now I have a lot of them. Thank you, guys. I'm not happy with that, but
You're welcome.
It's it takes very slick mechanics to be able to do both as well as it does. And I think the biggest difference, and Mike said it, is it's how you play it. I think the ships are beautiful, and you're right. If I want people to come and check out the table, I'm throwing a ship out there with a cool flag. So that's all the questions. I do want to get back to Blood and Plunder, but I just saw Rufus leap forward, and I don't know if he fell asleep or not.
No.
So I would love to, if anybody has any questions about Blood and Valor, now Mike will go to sleep, but
Yeah.
That's another game that's getting an edition coming up in the next few months. And Rufus, tell us all about it. Uh-oh.
All right. There's another question for Mike that he could answer if you want. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It
It's
says,
just Preston.
it's Preston. You know, and of course it's is it about tournaments and scenarios because he's won a few of them, right? Or he's done really well. But let's go to this one. Do you see the seeming increase in ship focus or encouragement that amphibious scenario games will become more common? Do you see amphibious scenarios being a tournament goal? That's a pretty good question.
Yeah, that's
It is a
almost
good-
more for you and I, Mitch.
Yeah.
that is a good question.
A tournament would be tough with an amphibious scenario, but
So, once upon a time, when we envisioned a tournament setting for Blood and Plunder, we called it. We had a term that we were going to use for it, but I forgot that term now. But basically, we envisioned a 3-round tournament where you would start with a sea battle in the first round, do an amphibious battle in the second round, and a land battle in the third round. We also envisioned another format where you have a completely open tournament where you could bring any kind of list, including one with a ship. And then if your opponent, since Blood and Thunder, as you know, plays on a pretty small table, you could just set up 6x4s for all the games, and they could all have a portion of water and land. And then if your opponent has a ship and you don't, then you just play it amphibious. If you both have ships, you play it on the sea. If you both have land, you play it on the land. And that was one of the things. But, I think that was a little overly ambitious for the early stages of the game.
yes.
I think
Well, at
that's
Historicon last year, we did
Mhm.
2 separate events. It was 3 rounds of land, and then we did, 2 or 3 the next day of
Yeah.
sea, right?
right.
So we totally skipped amphibious, but those are some really fun missions too.
Yeah.
And I think right now they tend to lend themselves more to just kind of scenarios and narrative kind of games. But no, I think I would like to see that happen. I think an amphibious tournament would be really interesting.
A way you could do it is a lot of tournaments do that where you start with your first game. You have, say, their first game is 100 points. The second game is 150 points, but with a ship, and the third game is 200 points with a ship. The third round. So you build your force within your force. So you could do something like that. That's one way you could do it. And so you do a land round, an amphibious round, and a sea round all in the same tournament.
Yeah.
And then if you win the land round, then you choose attacker or defender in the amphibious round. You go like that. You do something like that.
Yeah, there's just so many fun possibilities where you could make it. You could add a little bit of narrative and a little bit of a campaign aspect to a tournament for sure.
I would love to do an Army level tournament with the new book, especially with the regulars.
That would be a fun thing too. Army
Nope.
scale games as a tournament.
Why not?
You're not allowed. Anybody else is fine. Just no Mitch.
Not Mitch.
No, Mitch.
What do you mean? I've run.
You
some
can
of
sit
the
in the
most successful
corner and
tournaments.
watch. You sit in the corner and you watch. That's what you.
Well, I don't get to play in them anyway. But yeah, that's a good question. Amphibious battles just seem to kind of get lost, where everybody's like, "Who's bringing the ship? All right, we'll do, we'll do a ship battle."
Yeah, they're challenging. They're challenging to play because it's very atypical of the type of tactics you're because a lot of people can wrap their heads around. Everybody can wrap their heads around land battles for the most part. Most people have no problem tactically with the ship game, right? Well, for the most part,
Oh, wait. So a lot of people don't.
Well, I mean, that's what I mean is like they may play poorly, but my point is they have an idea of what to do. They're not like, oh, what do I do? They're like, I'm gonna do this, and typically that thing is not a good idea. But they have it's not hard for them to come up with a plan. You know what I mean? Whereas amphibious I've seen it. I've seen where it's amphibious. People are like, what do I do? Like, do I sail in? Do I sit here and carronade from the sea? I got to grab this objective at some point. So I think people are a little bit. I think it confuses people on a tactical level a little bit.
They are challenging.
Yeah, they are hard. They are hard to play from both perspectives, depending on the scenario. So they can be challenging for sure, but it definitely separates the men from the boys, if you will, on the.
Yeah, I don't mind hanging out with the boys. And Preston's like, hey, since Mitch he's blackballed, Hilly's going to organize the next amphibious tournament.
Perfect.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Preston
Black
could do
Bolt.
it. Preston could do it. That's right.
Anybody could do it, really, a trained monkey. Okay,
True.
so
We
let
don't
me
talk
get
about monkeys here.
actually I do. Pat is asked a question. Are the lists from the different eras you now cover cross-compatible? I believe they are.
Yes, they are going to be cross-compatible. And again, for things like events, like tournaments and such, we're gonna split it up into eras, right? So, basically 50-year increments, more or less. I haven't quite put the final word on that, but basically, yeah. So you can set, if you're having a campaign, a tournament, a pickup game, whatever, and people are bringing lists or armies, you can set them in specific time periods if you want to keep a theme, right? Or you can leave it open and say, when we eventually get to the War of 1812, you could take your American army against some Spanish corsairs from the 17th century if you wanted to.
So you're
That would
not.
be
We leave it up to the players.
A Tyler tournament would have very themed. When Tyler puts together a themed tournament, he's like, I like you to read pages 73 through 179. And I'm like, why? He goes, well, that's just going to get you understanding what I'm doing here.
Yeah. You can only play lists from February 1701.
Yeah.
Never done anything that bad. You injure me here.
So we have Chris Growl, who's a really good painter, as we all know. He has a question for Rufus. For B&V and Rufus, you previously mentioned that the next book will be focusing on the World War I Eastern Front and the Balkans, along with the Russian Civil War. You've also mentioned that the Germans will be getting an anti-tank rifle, which it should, because I primed mine today, by the way.
Yeah, it's going to get it.
Any other ideas for adding new units to the nations from the first book, or adding new theater lists like the French in the Middle East? Shucks.
Well, I guess Rufus hasn't officially announced it yet, but he's actually changed the whole theme of the book. It's going to be a Vietnam expansion now.
No, shut up, Mike. I'm getting in the car as soon as we're done. I'm driving down. You can be ready. It's coming. It's coming. No, yes. I know some people have talked about the anti-tank rifle. And one of the reasons I was reticent to add it to the first book is because tanks are sort of like a separate thing. But now we're going to be adding armored cars into the more of the main part of the book. So it gives certain countries that had anti-tank rifles, not all of them, an option to actually go against an armored car. The other one is, as you asked about adding more units or special overall units to all the lists, like where everybody can get one, we are going to do that or I am going to do that. If you notice, like in Blood and Valor, you have your commander and you have two helpers with a commander. They're basically, at this point, they're just riflemen. The idea was to, or my idea is that for a certain amount of points, you can actually upgrade one of those two riflemen into like a buff for your army. A good example is like a flag bearer for the Turks. And what the flag bearer would do is you pay a certain amount of points, and I got to figure out the points to make sure it's not overbalanced or underpointed or overpointed. But you'd pay for a flag bearer, and that flag bearer would expand your command range of your commander by a couple inches. So now you take a lieutenant, and now he's got a 10-inch command range instead of an 8-inch command range, which could be pivotal in a game. The other one I want to do is I'm going to add a medic. So you can actually have one of those two people is a medic, and he can either, and Mike and I discussed this, he can either get rid of fatigue or actually possibly bring some people back. I was thinking about maybe using Ernest Hemingway for the Italians, where he actually brings people back. So it's kind of, you can add some flavor to your force by some of these special units, but you don't have to, rearrange your whole force. Like if you have a force right now, you could just paint a medic model and say, all right, I'm going to add him with my commander, and that's your medic. Then obviously when the medic dies, you lose that ability, or your standard bearer dies, you lose that ability. So it's up to you to choose, if your command team gets hit, who do you use as casualties and stuff like that. Go ahead.
No, like yesterday, 2 days ago, I started going through all the drafts and just making sure everything's complete, Chris. And one of the things I saw is, wait, we're going to have to put conversions for the British and French that fought in China. And I'm like, and I said something to Rufus, and I kept looking through conversions of the French in Africa. The thing is, the lists are already there. We would just have to matrix it. So I'm going to send some stuff and float it to Rufus to see what he thinks. But yeah, I started to see that congruency to make sure that you have good guys and bad guys from every theater.
What is it? Yeah, and then some of the other things, like some of the other lists we've been playing around with to be a little more far afield. Because remember, we're covering in this book, it's not only the Eastern Front and the Russian Civil War, but I also look at what's going on in the rest of the world during World War I. And I want to add the Eastern Uprising, Easter Uprising in 1916 in Ireland. We're going to add a list into there for that. And then also, I think it was Mitch. Were you the one that talked about Pancho Villa? Who talked about Pancho Villa?
Yeah, it was you and I were talking about. It's weird because when I was painting my US, because I've been painting the heck out of Chris's models for the last month.
Yeah.
I'm like, what would be kind of neat, especially with and I was testing out the armored car rules, was to do Pancho Villa.
Right. Well, yeah, because the U.S. expedition down there sent a bunch of armored cars after him and all that, trying to catch him.
And your response was, yeah, if you want to go do something stupid like that, go right ahead.
No, I didn't say that.
No, he didn't say that, but like, stuff like that, it's kind of neat. But then somebody put, we don't need those stinking badges. And I go, that's the wrong movie. That's not a movie about Pancho Villa. No. So.
Yeah, but I just like the idea of, adding stuff like that in, because from our point of view, it's, or from my point of view, it's write a list that's balanced that you could actually play with. And then I like to see players come up with unique ideas and unique modeling ideas. And then, you show up to a tournament with, a bunch of Mexicans on horses, which is kind of interesting. Why not? I know it's not historically accurate, that Mexicans would have fought on the Western Front, but if they're in the book, it'd be kind of neat to do it. And that's one of the reasons I've been working hard to try to keep all the Russian Civil War lists and all these later lists actually playable against, say, a 1914 British list. So the idea is, if whatever flavor of list you're into, or what you want to build, you're not excluded from being able to play anybody else that has any of the forces within Blood and Valor. So I know some games do, like, early war, mid-war, late war, that kind of stuff. But the technology, it advanced right towards the very, very end of the period, but it didn't get super advanced to the point where it would make an army, like a 1945 German World War II army versus a 1939 Polish army, you would just wreck it. You have no chance. But in Blood and Valor, you have guys with bolt action rifles, machine guns, cavalry, artillery. It's not, you don't have that exponential advancement in military technology between the two.
Yeah, and it's very similar to what we're doing in Blood and Plunder. We're just leaving it open and up to the players. And this book is shaping up to really be like the No Peace Beyond the Line for Blood and Valor.
Well, Blood and Valor is shaping up to be the No Peace Beyond the Line.
And I'll tell you what, so I've been, so I submitted a few weeks ago.
He just fell over.
Who's it? Yeah, Mike
dropped my pipe tool.
So I submitted a few lists to Rufus for the book, and I've been playing the heck out of the Bulgarians. And I got to tell you the truth, I'm trying to find out who makes the models
for Bulgarians.
Oh my God, because you know what it is? They're fun. They're a lot of fun, and it's like,
well, tell them about the
Bulgarians.
Tell them about the penal battalion and all that stuff. So
yeah, so I found out that they had a penal battalion, and it's penal as in penology, as in jail, not anything phallic. But like, they had some really neat. They had mountain troops. They, their militia. There was just so much about it. I found some guy. His English really wasn't that great, but he did a ton of research and just emailing back and forth. But but there's so much great information out there with the Bulgarians, and I'm like, wow, this is really kind of neat. And even playing the Romanians, I haven't tried the Greeks that much yet.
Right.
I did the thing, but some of these lists are just real fun. I mean, the lists in the first book are real fun, but I'm really enjoying, like, you know, some of these very obscure lists, which...
Yeah, I do. I mean, the obscure lists are cool, and I just want to make sure that I don't fall into the trap of, if you have an army from the first book, you can't win against the new armies, you know, and some games fall into that trap. Like, oh, you know, there were 4 armies in the first book and I got that army, and then they've produced all these other armies with all these cool special rules, and now those armies suck. You know, you don't win with them. So I don't want to fall into that trap, which is a hard trap not to fall into. But that's why I think adding some across-the-board type units to the armies, so you can buff stuff and you can play around with things, and also adding multiple options for lists. Like there's going to be a German East Front list that's not identical to a German West Front list. They're similar. They have similar equipment and everything like that, but they'll have a lot more access to cavalry, and you know, the cavalry will be more integral to the units. Some of the other stuff we've been working on that are coming out really interesting how they play is the Russians. You know, the Russian Imperial Army, the Russian Imperial Cossack Army. We have I can never remember how they say it. It's like the Russian Temporary Army of the Republic, or I know that's not the right way to say it. But there was a time. No, there was a time when the Tsar was out of power, but the Bolsheviks hadn't taken power, and the Russian army was still involved in World War I.
Yeah, Kerensky's army.
Yeah, Kerensky's army. Yeah, but they have a name. The Russians have a name for it. That's, you know, I forgot exactly how it said. But the kind of cool thing is they're sort of realized it's falling apart at home, but they're still fighting. So it affects how the army works, and, you know, it affects the special rules of the army, to try to show that they're there, they're still fighting, but they're like, I don't know if we should stay here. So it's kind of one of these, like, so there'll be a lot of rules that they have issues with, you know, fatigue and stuff like that. But then they have moments where they can come back and be very courageous and stuff. The Russian armies, one of the things is, which I'll go over one of the special rules with one of the Russian armies, is the Russian Imperial Army has this rule called Die Hard, which basically, in Blood and Plunder, as we know, when you get up to 3 fatigue points, you start to fall back. You know, you're shaken. The Russian
Blood and Valor too.
I mean, yeah, Blood and Valor too. Yeah, same thing. You're right. The Russian army, the Die Hard rule, they don't become shaken. You only fall back when they die when they get to 7 fatigue points, or you double the amount of fatigue what's left in the unit. But they do, this is the important part where it makes it work, they do lose one of their actions when they're at, you know, 2 fatigue, 3 fatigue, or above. So when we have Russian playtesters, guys that actually live in Russia that do this.
We got to shout out those guys. Those guys have been super awesome.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're awesome. They're power gamers to the death, but they're good guys. But they presented the idea, and I was like, that's crazy, man, because you would just sit there and win every game. But what makes it work is the Russian army has a lot less army initiative points than any other army, because they're ponderous, they're big, they like to sit, but they're not super tactically aggressive. You know, their tactics aren't as good as their command structure's not as good. Not their tactics, but their command structure, command and control. So what that does is, when I played tested them a whole bunch of times, you're going second all the time because your opponent has more army initiative, but your units are much harder to get rid of. So it's an interesting kind of balance. And then when you need that, I got to go first and try to do something, you know, like to beat your opponent, you're going to wind up using almost all your army initiative to pull that off. But then you can rely on the fact that your units can handle the hits without going away. So it's kind of an interesting, it's fun to play. They play very differently than any other army, which is kind of neat, but it doesn't mean you're going to win every game or lose every game with them. So things like that I thought were pretty cool. But we have more special rules, but I'm trying not to go crazy with them. I don't want to make 50 special rules where you have to reference the rule book every time you play to try to figure out all these special rules. I want to keep it where if you play if you play regularly, you'll, after a few planes, you'll start to just learn them, and you won't have to reference the rule book. The ultimate goal is you play the game and you reference the rule book once in a while because you can't remember something. Not that you can't figure out how to do stuff, so you're constantly flipping through the rule book. Obviously, when you first start out, that usually happens. But the ultimate goal is to keep it as simple and playable, but keep as much interest and make it, not everybody's vanilla carbon copies of everybody.
Yeah, so we got some questions. Is there going to be an official Blood and Valor campaign system? Geez, I hope so.
Yeah, I'd like to do a campaign system. I would. It's on my radar to do it.
It probably won't be in this book though. This book has a lot of content already, and we don't want to. We want to get it out at some point. So.
And then we have two questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It says Bruce Willis did threaten a lawsuit. What the hell?
Because he said it was Die Hard.
Oh God!
Come on,
That's
man.
horrible.
Scroll
yeah,
up.
and then you know what it is? You know what in Russia? You know what Die Hard translates to? Die slowly. It doesn't really work. So for them, they don't call it Die Hard. That's why these guys don't know that. So
Yeah, cursing in other languages is awesome.
yeah.
So from Chris and Eric, we have a couple of questions on the same topic. And look, I don't know if you guys know, but we have a pandemic going on. And there's some talk about there's less tournaments because I was supposed to see you guys at Adepticon.
Yeah, that sucked that we didn't get to go to that.
Yeah, we're going to have to party hard in Adepticon 22. About solo scenarios. I know that we put out, Mike put out some solo rules, and there was a solo scenario posted in the Facebook group for Blood and Valor. What do you, since none of us are,
Right.
we're painting more than we're rolling dice. What do you guys think of solo scenarios?
Well, I actually haven't talked to Rufus about this, but I had an epiphany the other day on how we could literally just get the exact solo rules I did for Blood and Plunder and make it work for Blood and Valor using the cards. You can just use regular playing cards. You don't need Blood and Plunder ones. But I realized that since it's based on the same bones, it would actually, I'm pretty sure it's going to work. So I was going to bring that up. Haven't had the chance. Been busy.
Yeah.
But that's a possibility because I know that that's a very common request for Blood and Valor. So, and I know Rufus doesn't really have the time to do that and develop these 18,000 armies he's adding to the game. So
It's not 18,000. It's less than No Peace Beyond the Line. So it's only like 30.
Yeah, that's all right. But yeah, there's a ton of research. And it's going to be an awesome book. So I think we might be able to squeeze in the solo stuff in there if what I think will work. But we are thinking about it. We're just trying to find a way to do it. So it'd be cool. The Blood and Plunder one, I'm actually really happy with how that kind of turned out, surprisingly, because I really pulled that out of nowhere. But that was just pandemic, lockdown craziness getting in my brain, and just turning me into a competent designer temporarily. So I was able to put that together like in a week. But I think if we could turn that around into Blood and Valor, that'd be great because it does work pretty well. So I know Tyler's played it quite a lot, so he can vouch for it.
Yeah, I've had a
He
similar.
likes the solo stuff.
Yeah,
Yes, Tyler likes doing everything by himself because nobody wants to hang out with Tyler. So that's the problem.
He's
sad. I'm all alone
he's
here.
a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun.
Hey, I see somebody talking about a Christmas story. It's kind of funny. My son, who's also helped me write Blood and Valor, that's Kai. He actually wrote a scenario for the Christmas truce where you play soccer in Blood and Valor. Just as we're gonna put it out there eventually as kind of a fun if you want to play around with it. But another scenario that I was thinking about, which is I think I mentioned this before, but it's gonna be very outside the realm of how everything else plays. Is gonna be a tunnel fighting scenario. Which is I'm going to kind of steal. I don't want to. GW will probably sue me if I say it. The Space Hulk kind of concept. So that's just another one that we played around with. I do in the new book. I want to put a lot of kind of fun scenarios in there. The narrative scenarios, stuff that's just kind of out of the norm. Stuff that you wouldn't normally do. Gunboats. Obviously you're not going to bring a gunboat to a tournament. That's kind of very specific. But that would be kind of neat.
It's like bringing a gun to a knife fight.
Yeah, exactly. But stuff like that. So somebody says I'm a super nerd. Thanks.
That was me, actually.
Yeah, you're such a dork. But you know, but the other thing too with Blood and Valor is, you know, we're in the process of writing this, or I am, or all of us are in the process of writing this now. So if you have an idea and you want to see something, you know, in the Blood and Valor Facebook post, talk about it. You know, some guys do say, hey, you ever think of this? And we might have never ever thought of it. You said, that's a great idea, you know, and let's throw it up there. Why not? You know,
we've stolen.
Now's the time, if you're interested, now's the time to throw your 2 cents in there, and it might make the game better. That's the goal, right?
We've stolen tons of good ideas from people. So,
yeah, I mean, like tell the story of Mark Hume, right?
Oh, of Mark.
Yeah.
I like Mark. Mark's my buddy.
But the thing is, it's like he had a lot of comments, and I said, you know, it's not as easy as it seems. So he wrote the Japanese list, and I'm going to actually play test it next week. He did a really good job on that.
Oh, the Japanese list is awesome. And he's working on Chinese bandits, the Chinese warlord lists at that time period. So
yes, that's what I want to do.
The Chinese, really? Not Pancho Villa?
No.
I think you should do Pancho Villa, because you could.
Why?
Because you
why?
could dress up like
I was waiting for that to come.
Have you looked at yourself?
I look nothing like Pancho Villa.
Can you say "Oye, vato" like this with your finger?
I'm pretty sure Pancho Villa did not say "Oye, vato" because he's not from.
Yeah, whatever. It's close enough. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, you know, we'll make sure that when we do Pancho Villa, we'll call one guy the Mike.
Well, I'm excited for the Cuban army list. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, we'll talk about that later. Yeah, you know, it's Mark Hume. He put a lot of comments on the board, and he's a historical guy. And I'm like, dude, it's a game. It's a game. And he wrote a Japanese list that I'm looking at, and I'm like, how do I procure horses? I need horses for some of those bandits. These lists are a lot of fun that are coming up. And I had a Russian World War I army already, and I don't know if I want to play Cossacks or Imperial Army.
But you can. You can play both with those miniatures. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. You could do that. You could play them. You know, if you have a Russian Imperial Army, you could conceivably play them Russian Imperial Army, Russian Cossacks. You could play them, you know, White Russians. You can do all kinds of stuff with them, which is kind of neat. So another thing I want to bring up, a lot of people ask me about, and this comes up a lot, like, oh, I want to play, you know, like the French in Gallipoli or French in the, like you said, well, the French lists exist, and well, can I paint my guys differently and say they're these guys? And I'm absolutely. See, I don't want to make it where, oh, well, that guy doesn't have the right, you know, cuff color, or his pants aren't the right color. Oh, you can't use him. It's not like that. As long as when you're playing a game, your opponent knows that these are my close assault guys. These are these guys. These are these guys. Yeah, you're fine. Actually, there's nothing wrong with that. So
I'm looking at the comments, and Eric, I'm not happy because he ruined my joke. He said, White Russians, dude. I said, yeah. I was going to say the White Russian commander's name is General Lebowski.
Lenin was angry at him at the time.
Yeah. He said to take any rug in the place. So, yeah. Well, I also got a bunch of Oak and Iron questions people asked me beforehand. But like in our last, we have an hour. We can go longer. Tyler and I want to shake you guys down for stuff that maybe spoilers a little bit.
Sure. So Oak and Iron spoilers, you're saying, or different spoilers?
No, I mean we'll get into spoilers in a minute. But Oak and Iron just got restocked.
Yep.
Is it already sold out again?
Gone.
No, is it really?
No, we have plenty. We ordered a lot this time. We corrected our mistake from last time and made sure to order an abundant amount because I don't ever want to go out of stock on anything again. Because now that we're in this we're dealing with plastic product that's prepackaged like Oak and Iron. There's some new logistical challenges that come with that. Like right now we have Merchantmen and Gentlemen of Fortune boxes are both out of stock. right now, and that's, you know, those are boxes that we thought, you know, we ordered a minimal quantity on because we thought, you know, that they're in the starter. You don't really need maybe more than 2 of those. Most people are probably going to buy 2 starters to get double copies of that, and it's really more economical that way anyway. But that turned out not to be the case, and they ended up being very popular. And,
So I was asked the other day, and I, you know, because every once in a while I'll talk to some devs, you know, about, hey, what's going on? You know, it's all off the record stuff. And they were saying, you know, with COVID, we're not doing shows anymore, that sales have been really hit or miss. And then somebody goes, how did Oak and Iron do? And I go, you need to go to the webpage, man. They sold out. And they're like, no, they didn't. I go, they sold out.
Well, they only ordered 3 boxes of it total, so
yeah,
Yeah,
that
it
was the
wasn't that hard to do.
So they went on this, and they go, well, how do you do that? Because the first Oak and Iron event was canceled because of COVID, along with the first Blood and Valor event. How are these things selling out? And I said, Tabletop Simulator was one of them.
Yeah.
And the other one, too, is people started seeing the models when they started coming out. And I know when I got my boxes, I ordered more right away. Were you guys surprised by that?
So, yes and no. The answer to that question can
pleasantly
be
surprised. Yeah,
the answer to that question could be summed up in one phrase, in one number, which is just 2020. And so, you know, we had a super aggressive plan for Oak and Iron and Blood and Valor this year, because I mean, so many things that, and not even just coronavirus, like just our shipping partner completely making a disaster of getting the game out and messing up all of our stock on things like dice. Like they sent, there's tons of people who are still waiting for dice that you know, if you're still waiting for dice, please email us so we can get to your dice, because I mean, some people are, they sent stuff and they mixed up SKUs and they lost the pallet, and they found the pallet. People in Europe got their stuff months and months later than they should have. Stuff that we literally couldn't do anything about, because then a problem that typically, you know, we were ready to just put the stuff on a plane and get it out. And then they literally told us they couldn't, which is crazy, right? And then we were trying to fight them and get it done. And then by the time that happened, COVID locked everything down and we just couldn't do anything. Our hands were literally tied. I mean, there's nothing we could have done. So that was really, really frustrating. So at that point I was concerned, because I was like, oh man, like we haven't shipped it overseas yet. I don't really feel good about now going to shows and promoting it and such. That ended up not being a problem because we couldn't go to shows anyway. But we had a really aggressive plan for everything Oak and Iron, Blood and Valor, the 2 new big things we were putting out this year. We had a big deal worked out with Adepticon, where we had demo space like in the main hallway and stuff like that, where we're going to showcase the game right in front of everything. And we, you know, we paid a lot of that we've just left with them for next year. Hopefully we can capitalize on it then. But there's a bunch of, we were working out stuff with Gen Con, and we were going to have plans for Historicon and a bunch of other stuff. And obviously that fell dead in the water, because I knew for Oak and Iron, getting the game in front of people and letting them actually see it was going to be critical, because one of the big complaints that we get about the game is the models, right? Because when we first were showing the game, because we had issues with a sculptor who got sick, which is the story of our lives these days, is so we didn't have actual models, like 3D prints and stuff to show early on in the Kickstarter, and all people saw was like the renders, right? Those renders that were just kind of basic looking, and they did not do the ships the justice that I think they deserve, because the models are actually really nice. And once people see them in person, they always are like, oh wow, these look a lot better than I expected. I'm like, yes, I know. I'm very happy with how the models turned out, especially considering that there's almost no assembly involved. You can open a box and start playing, which was the goal, right? Here at Firelock, one of our big things is we want to make historical gaming more accessible and lower the barrier of entry and make it more and basically address the graying of the hobby, which is always a hot topic amongst historical gamers, right? So we wanted to make a game that's appealing to non-historical gamers, and I think doing stuff to make it more accessible would work in that direction. So so again, the plan was to come aggressive on non-historical shows and historical shows as well, because the game is still a great historical game. Obviously, we, with everything we do, we always pay really close attention to historical detail, and especially tactically. So, so we wanted to put it out everywhere and really try to make a big push, and then that just kind of fell dead in the water. Plan B was, as you mentioned, tabletop simulator. So we spent time and energy that we should have been using. Well, we planned originally using to develop other things and make new releases and start getting all that stuff ready, and just started working on making a mod for tabletop simulator. And I think that was able to start kindling up a community online, which is the only way you can do it in 2020. So things are getting a little better now, it seems like, and it's not so much in some places, it just depends. But as far as, not so much about the virus itself, but as far as lockdown regulations go, I should say. But yeah, so now we kind of, even still, we're like, I'm here sitting on Oak and Iron and thinking, okay, I almost want to like relaunch the game with a new Kickstarter or something, just to like kind of get that momentum going again, because I feel like it didn't get the launch that I really wanted for it, And same thing is true for Blood and Valor. I mean, Blood and Valor, I think, has done really great, especially considering that we have no tabletop simulator, we have no solo rules really for it. It came out at the end of February, just
right in the beginning of this.
Yeah, just as things were rolling out, same as Oak and Iron, and so we're going to. So next year, hopefully, as things start to improve and the vaccine comes out and they start doing whatever the heck it is that's going to improve the situation, we're going to, whenever that happens, roll all those, aggressively act on those plans once again.
So I'm going to recycle a question earlier that came up when we had 3 hours with the guys from Warlord. Eventually the pandemic will end, and those of us that are still left living have been painting for probably a year and a half by that point, and we're going to get out and game. There's going to be a flood of people that you will see at tournaments, hitting FLGSs. People are going to want to start playing with all this stuff that they painted. How are you guys prepared to kind of re-energize that community in both tournaments, conventions, and local stores?
Yeah, so that basically ties into exactly what I was just saying. All those plans that we had, they're still there. Like we have actual things that Rufus built a bunch of new stuff for our booth at the con.
Oh yeah, and you need to get that out of my house. It's getting old having that thing there.
It's fine where it is. It's good.
No, it's not.
But because actually I don't know, we actually had our trailer stolen with all of our, like, half of our booth and a bunch of our stuff in it, including that beautiful water table that we had.
305 for life, baby.
Yeah,
Miami
problems, but it's probably sitting on 20-inch rims somewhere. But anyway, so we have all that stuff and all the preparations we made, all the plans that we had, all the events we were going to do, and all the arrangements that we made with various conventions and stuff is kind of still standing, right? They've given us credit on that. So as soon as we can, we're gonna basically go forward on that plan again, and our quartermasters are all there standing by. They're all excited to do stuff, and we're going to hit the ground running as soon as we can, and just basically kick it up to the highest degree as we can.
Yeah, I've been asked by 4 local stores about doing Blood and Valor and Oak and Iron demos, and they're like, "Well, do you want to schedule that?" I go, "It's tough to schedule something that may be 9 months out, but it's just the excitement is there for when this ends."
Yeah, I know.
Because you guys had 2 games that, look, they're selling, they're doing well. It pains me to think of how much further you guys would be if we didn't have this pandemic. So thanks, pandemic.
Yeah, tell me about it. And I think, and you bring up a good point, and I think one of the things that has actually helped Oak and Iron specifically to sell well in this time is that you still have had people playing at home, right, with select close people that they're close with, right, people they know that have not had contact and stuff. So we have seen a lot of that. And Oak and Iron is a game that lends itself to that really well because it plays in a small space. You don't need to set up a ton of terrain. Everything's in the box. you know, and I think that has made it really appealing and had a lot of people, and I've actually seen it and seen people doing so and playing with their wives, with their kids, with their, you know, with their brothers, their cousins or uncles, whatever, you know, and I think to some degree that's definitely helped Blood and Valor, because even Blood and Valor, even though it's not as easy to set up as a naval game, because you still need to set up a table, you're playing on a 3x3, you know, and even for Blood and Plunder, we've seen the Kickstarter has generated a lot of excitement, and we've seen a lot of people, a lot of new players picking up the game, buying rule books, buying starter sets, 2-player starters and stuff, and I imagine they're doing the same thing. They're playing with people that they are close with. So playing at home is a thing I think that has now replaced the playing at the club or at a convention for a lot of people for the most part. So, and thankfully our games all are compact. They play on small spaces. They're easy to set up. They don't take a long time. So it's, we have that appeal going for us right now, I think.
We did get a question from Eric. He was asking, how does one join the Quartermaster program? Since you mentioned that as soon as all of this stuff kind of reopens and we can get back out into the world, Quartermasters are going to be leading the charge in a lot of communities. Is that still a program that you guys are taking people into, considering?
Yeah, and we even have people still doing stuff. Some people are actually running demos in stores. It's very, very minimal, but some people are. I know a lot of, I know there's a couple stores in Texas where they're having, or there's a store in Texas for sure, at least one. I think the other one's not in Texas, but they're running a campaign right now, you know, and you know they're doing it limited. I think the stores are limited to a certain amount of people, whatever. But I mean,
depends on which state it's in, yeah.
Right, and not only that, but as anybody who's a Quartermaster knows, it's not just we open it pretty wide, so it's also online stuff, right? So people who are running demos of Oak and Iron virtually, because since you can do that now, right? And things like that works as well. So we've got all that going on. But to answer the question, instead of rambling on, it's just all you got to do is send an email to quartermasters@firelockgames.com. I'm going to type it in the chat right now, and get in touch with Tim Korklowski. He manages that program, and he'll give you the information. It's essentially just fill out an application, which is just to ensure that you know how to read and write. And then if you can do that, you're in for the most part.
I can't read or write.
Yeah,
how did I get in there?
You're not a Quartermaster.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I got fired. I was actually in there and they fired. It was horrible. Hey, I got one thing I want to throw out there. I want to do a plug for Chris Growl. He has a YouTube channel that actually focuses a lot of his stuff on Blood and Valor. That was some of the painting that Mitch was talking about earlier. And then the name of his YouTube channel is Paint and Glory. And if anybody wants to go over there and check it out, he does some pretty cool stuff. And you can listen to Chris talk to you as you paint, which is kind of nice. So he's got a pleasant voice. But yeah, I was very happy that someone was interested enough in it to actually put the effort in to make a YouTube channel and talk about the game, which is great. So
always encouraging.
Yes, of course. But I really appreciate it. I know he's on this chat right now. He can hear me, so I really appreciate it. And I like how he math hammered a lot of the units, and he kind of found out that we got it right, which is kind of nice. So, but he talks about a bunch of stuff in the game, so it's kind of interesting. He breaks down stuff, and he can paint, so he does some painting videos and stuff like that.
Actually stumbled onto his channel by accident. I watch a lot of stuff. I have a dual screen setup when I'm working.
Right.
I watch a lot. And when they originally came out, I was watching the on tabletop stuff for Blood and Plunder, and that's part of how I got into the game. But yeah, I stumbled onto Paint and Glory without realizing that it's someone that we have in the chat here.
Yeah, it's Chris. Yeah.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch. And I mean, it's great, like just relaxing, almost background noise to just listen to him talk.
He
over and see him paint.
He fortunately has one of those relaxing voices. I mean, it's good. If you're going to do a YouTube channel, you either have to have a weird voice or a relaxing voice. And he just kind of talks, and you can paint, and you listen to him in the background. It's great. So
he's the NPR of Firelock Games.
Exactly. He sounds like an NPR guy. He does. He absolutely does. Yes.
Welcome to the delicious dish.
Exactly. Blood and Valor, the game of the future.
So if he's the NPR, what does that make Tales of the Sail?
Oh, that's like pirate porn, dude. That's
it's the Rush Limbaugh of.
And let me give a plug to the Tales of the Sail guy. Actually, we're putting them up for an award.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we're gonna hopefully get some of you guys voting because it's a good podcast. It's dedicated to a single line of games or a single company. But the Painting Fridays that Tyler mentioned, I've got to tell you, they're a lot of fun.
They've been awesome.
It is. It's the stuff from tournaments I miss, which is, according to Glenn, me not behaving. But I mean, come on.
None of us behave on there. I say
Yeah.
lots of things I shouldn't on there all the time.
Yeah. So Mike says things like, and you know what's weird? You've given some spoilers by accident, but I've never seen them on a Facebook page. Or do you hear, what they, what they're talking about and stuff like that? It's, well, either they're not paying attention to you, or it's
Probably
a
what it
group
is,
of
yeah.
guys.
Nobody pays attention to Mike.
Yeah.
And by that time,
And-
it's pretty late at night. It could be that I'm accidentally speaking in Spanish and don't realize it. That's a possibility too.
Yeah, it's
Switch in my
crazy.
brain. Yeah.
So let's pretend we're painting, and it's a Friday night, and let's talk about all the stuff that it's tough to talk about what we're planning for, in life for 2021. But I think you guys probably have some spoilers and some interesting, fun stuff that
I don't think I can
Anyone
say
to
this
share?
on the channel.
you can.
no, you don't
No,
want to know,
remember-
dude.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't. Whatever it is, 'cause it's going to be on
January
YouTube
2nd,
eventually.
I turned 50. You know what that means, right?
Let me tell you something.
We shouldn't talk about that here.
No.
I turned 50 not too long ago. Let me tell you, I went into a
Oh,
deep
he's
depression.
ready.
Yeah, I went into a deep depression, and then my wife set me up with this 24-year-old girl, and so we went out, and I'll tell you what. Halfway through dinner, I came running home. I'm like, I'm okay to be old. It's okay to be old.
You're good at it. You're good at it. You're good at it.
You
I'm
are.
good at it.
You are
He
an
doesn't
expert old
understand.
man,
I'll give you the reference later. You won't like it when I tell you that.
yeah. I think Mitch knows, but
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, I'm this close. This close.
almost there.
All right. Well,
Anyway,
bunch
before
of
we
things I'm
derail this
thinking
anymore, so it's not really a spoiler because I talk too much is the problem. I already basically say everything. But for the thing I'm most excited to start working on when I get past finishing up this Kickstarter is Frontiers. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
Remember,
about it.
we played around with that.
We did.
What
Yeah.
con was that? That was the last con we went to, I think.
I don't know, man. It was. Oh, do you know what that was? I think that was Crucible. It was Crucible.
At Crucible, when we were bored, we were sitting around playing that thing. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. We were. So we played it. So that was the first. You got to try it.
Yeah.
It's just a super cool. I'm just really happy with how it's coming out.
Oh, I think that would work out really well. It'd
And
be a fun game.
Nate Zettel, who's our famous campaign guy, he's already working on a campaign system for it, and he's a veteran of many of those of lots of RPGs and games like Mordheim and such like that, which the campaign is going to be modeled after, except balanced. But
give us some deets on the game, guys.
So okay, yeah, that's something I haven't actually talked about is how it mechanically works. So one of the coolest things is that even though it's very, very different from Blood and Plunder, it maintains the spirit of Blood and Plunder, which was the design concept from the beginning. So all the unit stats for all the units in Blood and Plunder will work so every single unit ever published for Blood and Plunder is going to work in Frontiers immediately because the stats are the same. Some of the special rules do slightly different things, but they all generally do the same thing. So it's a very small model count. If you have 10 models, that's like a lot. Okay, so typically you're going to have 5 or 6 more or less, right?
I thought we talked about
it's
7 wouldn't be the ultimate, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's 5, 6, 7. It's that I haven't done a ton of like list building yet with it, so it's subject to change on that front. But essentially we try to make it as simplified and streamlined as possible. So the game plays on a 2-foot by 2-foot board. There's no cards aside from unit cards if you want to use them. All you need is 3 D10s. 3 D10s is all you're going to need, and then you need some reloads and markers and fatigue. Right, that's all you really need to run the game. So the way it works is it works on an action point mechanic that is similar but not the same as Blood and Valor, because it's a once a turn thing. So the action point is what you're going to use to activate units back and forth, and it's very much a reactionary system. So it's very fluid. So as you spend your points, you're spending actions, and anytime I do an action, you could spend a point to react to my action, and it just keeps constantly moving back and forth and it just flows really, really nicely. And it's you can use your points not only to activate your units, but you can also use them the same way you would use multiple actions or fortune points in Blood and Plunder. It all boils into the same thing, where you could basically spend points on action. So if I'm gonna shoot you, right, instead of just rolling 1d10, I could spend the 2 of my points to roll 2 extra dice on that attack, and I'll take the better of the 3, right? So now, of course, if you do that with everybody, if you do that with a bunch of guys, you're gonna run out of points quickly, and you're not gonna be able to react to things. You're not gonna be able to rally your guys. You're not gonna be able to activate things in general. So it's a cool. So the action, and that whole concept came from when I was first working on it. I wanted to basically, it's like if you played one unit in Blood and Plunder as your whole army, right?
Yeah,
so,
they're all individual guys. Yeah,
but they're all individual. So it's so if you played this, so it's like if I played a club on this model, and the amount of points you'll get every turn varies because you're gonna kind of bet. So you have some control of initiative. You're gonna bet points on your initiative roll, and that's how you determine how many points you're gonna have, who goes first, etc. So and then again, that's similar to Blood and Valor in that aspect. So so that's kind of made to represent, like, if you're playing a card on one unit, those actions will be spread throughout your whole army essentially in this case. So it eliminates the need for the cards, and you can play it. Everything you need to play will fit in this tiny little box, which is really cool. So I am really looking forward to getting that out there.
Plus almost everybody who plays Blood and Plunder now has everything they need to play this, because they have the models.
You need the rule book.
You need a unit of models painted. You got it, basically.
Yep. You can play with 4 models just fine, yeah. And the games are typically about 30 minutes so far.
And you're going to do
average about 30 minutes. Yeah.
Where you build them outside the game, and you advance your guys. Kind of like a Mordheim / those kind of feel to it.
Yeah, and that's the exciting part of it, is the setting. So it takes it much more into like an exploration kind of adventure sort of setting, right? So multiple, and we're going to have some of those in the book. So, like, for example, you could do a group of fur traders, right, moving around in the wilderness, encountering hostile opposing factions and moving from place to place and trying to trade your goods and whatever. Or you could, on the same token, and it's going to have rules for ships as well. And I actually just nailed down not that long ago, right before the Kickstarter, I nailed down the way ships are going to work. But it's very similar to Blood and Plunder, but a little simplified. Obviously only smaller ships, because you're not going to run around you're not going to run around in a galleon with 5 guys. Yeah. So, but so one of the things you could be is, like, if you've ever read any stories about buccaneers or just sailors in general, oftentimes the buccaneers will go and they'll raid a town and they'll come back, and now their ships are gone. Their ships that they left behind as they trekked across Panama. The Spanish came and said, "Hey, look at these ships. Let's get rid of this crap." And now you're stuck. So now so they would often send small groups of people on, like, a makeshift canoe that they stole from somewhere. And now these guys have to sail across the Caribbean to get to a place where they can get help to send ships back and stuff like that. So all those things are going to be that type of adventures and encounters you can play through in a campaign, which I think is going to be really fun.
I think it's going to stink.
Yeah, probably. So that's me.
Yeah.
How about you, Rufus? Aside from obviously expansion from Blood and Valor.
Yeah, well, I talked about that in the last one of these we had, was going a little further back in history into the Spanish-American War, into the Boxer Rebellion, into the Boer Wars, just almost like a worldwide encompassing what was going on in the world in the years leading up to World War I, which, you could do cross-play with those, which would be pretty interesting,
Second Cuban Revolution.
Yes, you could finally play Cubans with machetes and the whole bit, it'd be great. So, or the Spanish, you could play the Spanish again too, but you'd probably go Cubans on those. I think you might actually go Cubans.
The Cubans are the good guys in that one.
But, and it's crazy, like, there's miniatures made for those that are floating around. And I know somebody was doing plastic box rebellion guys. And, it's kind of interesting. You could. So as long as they got bolt action rifles and either machine guns, artillery, horses, you could kind of put that system on, that kind of stuff. So we're already playing around with that, those ideas and stuff. So I just want to finish this book, get this thing done.
And of course, I got to shout out to the RPG that's in progress. That's it's kind of being worked in hand with Raise the Black, since it shares a lot of resources like units and
Right.
history and stuff. But that's I know a lot of people have asked about that, and that's something that, based on our talks recently, I think going forward in the future you're going to see. I think that's because a lot of the people here at Firelock are very much into role playing. I'm not really into role playing games, but a lot of them are, and there's really not. I think there's an interesting niche to fill with historical RPGs. And
Yeah, we were talking about that. Yeah.
And we've got a few of those. A few ideas that'll probably be based off the same system we're doing with Raise the Black, that are pretty cool, and it's gonna have some cool stuff in it. Like, it's apparently there's an RPG term called gritty, which is the way we would describe this RPG, which is to say that it's dangerous, right? Like it's historical, so it's not like I'm a superhero and I have 18,000 hit points. It's like, oh, if you got shot, that's a very big problem. It's not like hey, I got shot, I only have 100 health left, I can take a few more bullets before I die. It doesn't work that way.
Nope.
So and there's rules to scale mass battles, right? So your small group of privateers or whatever in the RPG is going to be able to participate in like a big event historically, right? Like you join your force with Henry Morgan's attack on Panama, and now that battle's playing out and it's happening and you're in it, and it's pretty cool the way that Tim Kukluski has set it up. I think it's going to be a hit, and I think we're going to continue to move along those lines as well as trying to, again, bringing historical gaming to the mainstream community, hopefully, in different and kind of out of the box ways.
What about, I heard you guys talking, maybe I shouldn't bring this up, but it was a Blood and Plunder fight club that we're going to play at tournaments.
Yeah. You talking about the,
like a real fight club.
Yeah, with the knives and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. It didn't land.
Oh, you
man.
are? Oh, I thought it was for real. I'm down.
No. I thought it'd be funny.
I figured it was a joke, but I thought maybe there's something I didn't know about.
Because I'm like, I have stuff I can hit Mitch with. And just,
yeah, well.
Okay, oh, shit. I killed Mitch.
He's dead.
Eric
right,
says Hank at Adepticon hates cleaning up blood.
Yeah.
I wish we had it at man, I hope we have one. Ugh, the Adepticon would be great. I don't know.
Yeah, the RPG was one of the things, and I think Frontiers too was one of the things that was supposed to be play tested, like kind of after hours at Adepticon.
Yep. I think I'm willing to risk COVID for Adepticon. I think I'm willing to do it at this point.
Really? We'll just wrap you up in plastic wrap. You'll be fine.
I'll just wrap it around my face.
The whole body, the whole thing, the top to bottom. I don't know if they'll do it. I mean, I hope they do it. I think it's dependent a lot on the state of Illinois if they're going to do it.
Well, so interesting we talk about this. Right now, LVO is looking at whether or not they're going to hold their event. LVO, I mean, Las Vegas Open is a massive event, but the state has already hit the I don't give a shit button. But it's whether or not some of these places are going to get the liability insurance. And like there was a guy on that helps run Adepticon in one of the earlier chats that I was in, and people were like in the message asking him, what's the story with that?
Well, they need to make a call soon because
they need to make a
people
call
need to
pretty
plan.
soon.
Yeah.
Because now we would be planning for Adepticon right now. I mean, that's, not that far out really in reality.
Yeah.
No,
what I'm kind of real worried about is the fact that we haven't heard anything now that it may not happen. Yeah, I mean, it's an answer. The last thing I would ever want to have happen is to go to a con and then come back the following year and it's like, well, what happened to this guy? Well, he died.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, of
And,
course. Yeah.
I'd feel bad about that. for
Well,
about,
it
a week.
depends on who, honestly. But yeah,
It really
Yeah.
does depend on who. Yeah. Is there anybody we want to get rid of? We invite them. But I mean, look, we're not in a unique situation. Like talking to all the guys in Great Britain today on the earlier
it's worse over there. Yeah.
sessions,
Yeah, they're shutting down
it is
again.
worse
Yeah.
because they can't even go into their place of work and fill orders, which was never a problem here for you guys, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, the guy that fills the orders, actually never leaves Firelock Games. He lives there.
We don't let him leave yet.
Yeah, he's like in a little
We got
nest.
we got him in a dog bed in the back right
Yeah,
now.
in a nest.
Chained up. Yeah.
underneath boxes, so he never
Yeah.
leaves.
There was something called the 16th Amendment. So, but they're in.
The amendments
Really?
don't count in South Florida, Mitch.
No,
Nobody-
That's right, yeah. Florida man.
There's no constitution in South
No.
Florida. That's gone.
Yeah, I mean, so I think we're going to start hearing. I already asked, HMGS about Cold Wars
Historicon,
and Historicon. Right now, the plan is that Historicon, out of anything, is on.
I think Historicon should be okay at this point because at that point we'll be in the summer. The summer months we know are better. And I think by that I think there definitely will be a vaccine readily available by then and screening.
What's
We'll
Cold
be more
Wars is in
adapted by then.
November, right? It's Cold Wars supposed to
Cold
be
Wars
now?
is in March.
Oh, no,
this
it's
would be
fall
in right
in.
now.
You're
Fallen
thinking of
is-
Fallen,
Yeah, I
which
gotta mix them.
that's what this is. This is basically
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
No, I know. Shut up. Whatever.
Yeah.
I just
It
sit in my
actually
pool
was
all day long. I
last
don't know what the
week.
hell's going on. So
But, a lot of it is until people feel comfortable. Because let's be honest, we've all been to many events. And other than the lack of body hygiene, it's like comorbidities all over the place. So,
yeah.
it's the last thing you want to do is to put something bad happening at, one of these events. Look, a good friend of mine who I did doubles with, John Stitt, he caught, he got the flu at, what was it, Fallen like 4 years ago, and he passed away from that. And a lot of people were like, geez, and that's when you started seeing the hand sanitizers at HMGS events and other things. And then them, trying to open up the tables a little bit. But, all right, what is that?
Yeah, who's getting feedback?
Yeah, it's that and whoever's clicking the damn pen, Rufus. But yeah, I think it's good. I think next year is going to be interesting. But I do think you guys really, you have some games that are just going to explode right away because we never got a chance to play the hell out of them.
Yeah.
And
Well, last Adepticon was supposed to be the first tournament of Blood and Valor. People were excited about it. They just killed it, dude. I was looking really forward to doing that.
Yeah, we had a bunch of sold out events for that and a few other things.
Yeah, they were all but.
And Chris brings up a thing about, well, even if Adepticon happens, how many people will buy tickets? You will be surprised, Chris, because I just got the other day, somebody's like, hey, I'm going to Masters for Flames of War. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
There was hardly any tournament. Like, well, it's really important. I go, why? I would not want to wear a 2020 Masters shirt because I got to be honest, this guy has health problems. I'm like, is it worth that much to die? But
to play with little soldiers, yeah.
But if you opened up an event like Adepticon, people are going to go.
Yeah.
They've I think they already opened up the room block for Historicon next year.
It's already sold out.
Yeah,
and it's already gone. That's what I was gonna say. I think they've opened it and it's gone.
There you go.
When you have 10 rooms, it goes pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, it's. I think tournaments are going to be interesting. I think that they're going to be a little slower at first. People are going to be a little worried, and something. I'm gonna shove Mr. Bick right up your ass there.
I keep forgetting, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't know you could hear that crap.
Oh yeah.
All kinds of noises coming from your end, but that's not surprising.
Yeah.
That's you. Well, you put
just-
down your pipe, play with your pipe the whole time. Clickety.
I'm just surprised you're able to turn your computer on. That was impressive.
My
Yeah.
computer's actually older than you, so go figure that out.
But it's going to start off slowly, but I think if it's done safely,
and we pull out of it, because I don't know about you, I'm looking forward, man. I painted so much crap,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
like
if they get
locus-
if they get an inoculation for the virus, I think that's going to open everything up. That's what we're
Yeah.
waiting for. You know?
And one of the advantages, again, to go back to our small table sizes, is that we could actually space out
Mhm.
our games pretty well, thankfully. You know, when all of our events mostly run on 3x3s. Excuse me. So, you know, when it does happen, I've already thought about all that stuff. You know, I don't know if we're going to run demos at our booth necessarily or how we're going to do that, but you know,
just use Jonathan. So
yeah, it's fine.
yeah, we don't care. It was fine.
So
there's a question I should have asked Benderson earlier, but you know, you look at the actual golden age of piracy. Wasn't smallpox a huge concern?
I mean, it depends on who you're talking about.
I mean, but you know,
For
it's
Native
kind- it's-
Americans, it was. It sucked ass, dude.
Not good. No.
No. Yellow fever,
know-
dengue fever, small. Yeah. Oh, you're not dengue.
No,
and then
yeah.
Great War with the the Spanish flu,
Yeah.
scurvy. Yeah.
We're getting we're just making the events that much more historical, you know.
Mm.
So-
Right. Yeah, I've been itching to get my oak and iron on the table, even though I did a shit job painting like most things, but just because
I haven't seen them yet. You should show me so I can.
they're not that good. They're not that.
No, they're
I'm so-
tiny. They're tiny little brown chips. Nobody can see that. Mess.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it, man.
I am proud of the Blood and Valor stuff I painted. Matter of fact, I've painted so much, I'm starting to do all that terrain stuff that I've been threatening to do.
Yes.
So I'm going to
Good.
have a full up, no man's land board, that
Yeah.
looking at Rufus's board. I'm excited about getting out there, but unfortunately we've been doing everything for a very social hobby that's been denied to us. And I mean, I was crazy enough to get out of the house. They did a small 6-player Armada event, and I went. What's wrong with me?
I know. A lot of
I
things.
get it, man.
actually.
I've actually been, every opportunity I've had to game lately, I've taken it.
Oh no,
I mean, it hasn't been like in public places or anything. It's typically here at the
Or at
Firelock
people's
office,
houses,
at my home, and another game that we're that's on our radar for some point, maybe next year, is we got a game which doesn't have a name yet, but it's basically a prehistoric skirmish game. I guess you could call it scientifically accurate-ish. Yeah.
Can you call it Flint and Stones?
We could call it anything because it has no name yet. But so I went and I play tested with the guy working on it. Last night. It was fun. It was cool. We got to play in person. I pretty much don't say no these days whenever I get the opportunity. And I've had a few people local who play Blood and Plunder who have contacted me. I said, yes, please. I am dying to get play testing done. Please come play with me. I mean, I'm willing to risk your life and mine to get this project done. So.
Mhm.
So
Challenge.
I was gonna say, Eric asked, do we have an elevator pitch for Oak and Iron from the guy for someone who is already silly deep into Blood and Plunder? I mean, other than the fact that it's available on Tabletop Simulator and you can play it right now.
Yes, you can play with anybody you want right now for free. Well, if you own Tabletop Simulator, I guess you got to buy that. But no, for Oak and Iron itself as a game, it's if you like Blood and Plunder, you'll definitely enjoy Oak and Iron. It takes the same core concepts that we apply to Blood and Plunder and applies them to a completely different game system that's designed for mute yourself.
No, that's
What
I
I-
think that's on Mitch's end.
I didn't make any
Mitch?
noise.
I thought it was
No,
Rufus,
it's not.
'cause It started making that noise and Rufus's screen popped up, so I figured it was him. Anyway, to go back to it, it's so if you like Blood and Plunder, and especially if you enjoy the ship battles, and if you like the ship models in general and just Age of Sail stuff, the sailing tactics and all that, you're gonna love Oak and Iron because and one of the coolest things about Oak and Iron is that it's a really really easy game to get into. I mean, the core box is really completely self-contained. You don't have to buy anything outside of that box to have a really good game, and you could replay tons of times because we put all the upgrades, all the different nationality, all the factions, everything is in there, right? So, and it basically, because one thing Blood and Plunder does not scale too well, for obvious reasons, is naval battles in regard to actual navies, right? So like ships of the line, first rates, second rates, third rates, larger frigates, even those things you could play in Blood and Plunder, but to put a fleet of frigates and on the table, even 3 frigates in Blood and Plunder is a massive game. So in Oak and Iron, you could basically take that and now play that much simpler, and you can focus more on the things that make larger sailing engagements interesting. A lot more of the command and control aspects that are kind of all baked into the initiative system and the way you play it and all that. But if you like Blood and Plunder, you'll definitely like Oak and Iron, because it's got the same level of flavor and detail and historical accuracy, and it covers the same period, and they tie in together. We have tie-in rules that are very far along, but they got abandoned early this year to focus again on making the tabletop simulator app and working on that, and solo rules for Blood and Plunder. All that stuff kind of took its place because of 2020, but they will still be released probably early next year. I don't think we're going to make it this year, just because I have so much to do with the Kickstarter. But probably very early next year, we'll see the tie-in rules. So you'll be able to do things like basically interconnected games, right? So say you're playing an amphibious game where you're trying to do a breakout, right? So you're getting guys on ships and trying to sail away. So now that you've sailed away, now you're joining. So now other enemy ships are trying to intercept you in the Oak and Iron game, and now you have other ships coming in to support you, etc. So those types of things is what it'll lean toward, as well as an actual hybrid of the two systems that you can use to make basically more. It kind of turns Oak and Iron into a dueling game. So it's more about small numbers of ships on each side, but then it lets you incorporate some Blood and Plunder aspects, like an actual crew that you would play Blood. So when you do boarding actions and stuff, you can play it out Blood and Plunder wise. Kind of think like a very advanced versions of not wooden ships, broadsides and boarding parties.
I was in my local gaming store restocking on paint. We don't have tables open, but we're limited on how many people can be in the shop. I was in there restocking paint, and one of the things that store does is keeps a very large library, and they also buy and sell old games like that. And they had a full copy, very battered copy, but a full copy of Broadsides and Boarding Parties that I was looking at. So I was like, oh man, if we're going to be jumping kind of into that. I think I played that game once when I was very little at a friend's house, but
yeah, I never played it because had I known about that game when I was younger, I would have been all over it. But I learned about it, when I was working on Blood and Plunder and looking into other rule sets, and that game popped up, and I was like, this is super cool. But of course, secondhand copies are insanely expensive.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I didn't even look at the price tag that they were asking for this. And I mean, the sides of the box are all beat out.
The game itself, from what I've read in the rules, doesn't seem like it seems pretty cool. It's kind of similar to what Blood and Plunder is, sort of, but like a very simplified, almost too simplified version. But it's cool enough to buy if I find it cheap somewhere, or a reasonable price, like $50 or something.
But
wow, it's we still got 15 minutes left. We could stretch it, guys, but today is a national holiday, so I don't know if you guys want to get going early. Today is National Pickle Day.
Is it?
So, and no, it really is. I dill myself on this day every year.
Oh no, you're more like a sweet gherkin. You're not a dill.
I am.
You're a sweet gherkin boy.
When I'm feeling naughty, I could be a half and half. So, but yeah, I'm excited for a lot of stuff that you guys talked about today. I get even more excited, just hearing the excitement you guys have for it. I'm going to try to get Oak and Iron on the table solo. So,
well, real quick, actually.
The Zeppelin rules. Do you see that crap? Shut up, Liam. Go to bed, Liam. It's like 3:00 in the morning in England. Go to bed.
Yeah.
How do you even get it?
I'll tell you what. Having guys in the Zeppelin with pistols fighting it out.
Sure, why not?
Very
It
cool.
makes complete sense.
Zeppelin boarding actions were a thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. It only lasts one turn, Oh, the humanity.
Or you could just buy a big Zeppelin model and throw it on the table and just crush everything and say, I win.
That works too. Yeah. Hey, I want to plug real quick. Actually, I actually
I'll give you a
follow
plug.
up on it. No, for the on our Oak and Iron page right now. We did it. So one of the things we did earlier this year was we did an online international campaign, and the community has been asking for another, but I had just been too tied up with too many things, haven't been able to do that. So they told me to go to hell and did it themselves. So it's happening right now. So if anybody's interested, they actually just did the first pairings for this the first season. So if you want to get involved, you want to try Oak and Iron, it's a great way to learn the game. Games on Tabletop Simulator do take a little longer, fair warning, than they do in real life. But it's really cool. It's a good way to get some gaming in, and the campaign system that Nate Zettel put together is super fun. So go ahead and join the Oak and Iron Players group, or whatever it's called, Oak and Iron Gamers group, I think it's called. And in that group, they are running the campaign now. There's right on the top thread. Just jump in, say which faction you want to join, and start blasting some cannons.
Good to go.
Yeah, I'll try. I'm trying right now to get that link into the chat for people.
It's
no.
mike.tunez@firelock.sexgod.com.
That's exactly the group address.
Something like that, yeah.
I had
So,
to pay Facebook a lot of money to get that custom link done.
so we're going to see the monkey back. Is the Blunder Monkey coming back?
I don't know what that is.
There's
Okay.
a monkey. Hey, there's a monkey, though.
I saw there's a monkey.
There is a monkey.
We do have a monkey on the sprue, yeah.
Yeah,
Decorative-
I'm excited about the
decorative
monkey.
piece.
Yeah, I'm going to name it after, probably my son. That kid gets in everywhere. But I want to thank you guys once again for supporting HMGS Roundtable. I know that we talk to you guys all the time, but I know that you guys, 2 hours on a Saturday night is a lot to ask for. And Mike actually was an interviewer with the guys from BattleTech, which is already posted online.
Nice.
I am going to post this one online, but look, we do appreciate you guys doing this with us, and especially the folks that stuck with us for 2 hours. It's funny when we talk about certain things, people start getting off the channel. They're like, these guys are not my type of guys, but I really want to thank you guys once again in helping us out with this, because folks really want to hear from you, not from Tyler and I.
disagree.
Definitely not from me. More
I
from
disagree.
Tyler.
They're definitely here for you. We're just a sideshow. But
Nah.
we're always happy to sit and chat. We're gamers. We really are gamers.
Yeah, we are.
First, and so we get the same kicks out of all the stuff that you guys do. That's the BattleTech thing. BattleTech is what got me started on gaming. And as I mentioned in that interview, it's funny. I actually realized BattleTech is what actually got me into history. Ironically, so it's always fun to do this stuff, and we're happy to do it. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to let everybody do the National Pickle Day. Tomorrow we have Plastic Soldier Company, and they reserve 2 hours. What's this? Always good at culling the pot. Thanks a lot, Beth. They're just going to talk about spoilers tomorrow. They got a Vietnam 10mm game that's coming out. So if anybody's interested in that.
Sweet.
Yeah. So
10mm, huh? It's skirmish.
10mm is odd. Yeah. Well, maybe it's a good game. You never know.
I'm interested because this is the first time they ever talked about it. So
yeah. I didn't know they were doing. Well, they have done. Is it going to be like a board game, like their their Great War game, or?
I don't know. That's a good
Their Great
question.
War game was 15 mil. So yeah. But they're little.
We'll have to tune in tomorrow and find out.
Yeah,
It will.
Battle Group. Because they do all the Battle Group games too. But for guys that like to play stuff other than the colonial age and the start of the Great War.
I don't know why.
the start of the century, huh?
I said that's weird, but okay. I don't know.
Hey,
play anything else.
Hey, I want to mention to Chris. He said, "What did he say there?" He says, "Well, sometimes someone refuses to put Vietnam and Blood and Valor."
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, my son's working on a version of it. So Vietnam.
Yeah, I would be excited to play that.
That's
Which
I
one?
thought that's what you wanted us to keep to shut up about.
About what?
The Vietnam game, Kai's
No,
working on.
no. My son's working on it. He loves Vietnam for whatever reason. I know it's ancient history to him. He's young, so. But yeah, he's working on it. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see what happens with that.
What's that going to be called?
Mitch Reed. We're just gonna name
No.
it Mitch Reed. Just
Blood-
solid.
it's
Just
gonna be
that's
called-
it.
It's gonna be called Blood and Mitch.
It's gonna be called Blood in
That-
Vietnam.
That would be.
B&V. That'll be confusing.
How about Love and Beads?
Love and beads.
Yeah.
Love and Beads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then put a big peace symbol on the front. That'd be
I'm
kinda
still waiting on that submission for Blood and Yoga. I'm ready to roll that one out.
I actually started it the other day.
Waiting to see the rules. Waiting to see.
Would
it
you like to
happen.
see? Would you like to see the models real quick? I
I've
got the
seen it, but
models.
show
Hold
the-
on.
You can show the people.
Yeah,
the
I'll
models.
give a vote for that.
Dude, are we going to see some part of Mitch we've never wanted to see before?
Probably, yeah.
Oh,
That you haven't already, or
You should probably cut the recording. You should probably cut the recording quick before it shows
Yeah,
up.
quick, go.
Wait.
It's horrified.
All right. So here we got. This is tree pose.
Oh my God, those are beautiful.
Yeah, this is the guy sticking his head up his ass pose. This is downward dog pose.
Now, I should mention, these are just prototypes. Obviously, the final
Yeah.
models.
No,
will
those
be-
are the final models. What are you talking about? Those
the
are
final-
done.
And
the
this
final models
guy
will be
right
gray, not
here,
green.
I call this guy 1 foot away from being the coolest guy in the world. You know what I mean?
1 foot away from being 50.
There you go. Yeah. Well, you know, it's a good thing about growing old. You're just closer to death. But
Yep.
Tyler, if you want to, Mitch, you 3D printing those. No, you could buy. They're called Yoga Joes. You can buy them.
With money, with actual money.
Yeah,
You paid
you can get them
money
on
for those.
Amazon.
Oh, good. Yeah. Wow. I thought you used a lighter and some old Army men and just mushed them up.
Yeah. So it's like you do one of these. You know, it's
That's nice, Mitch. Yeah.
yeah.
that's
No,
the note we're gonna end on here.
Yeah. That's the,
Cut the recording.
that's the
Have your
peak,
chance,
dude.
Tyler.
That's the
Yeah.
peak.
And Tyler, you could take us out.
All right, so the scripted outro here, I guess, is NoDiceNoGlory.com and HMGS would like to thank Firelock Games for their time today. The video from this session can be found on No Dice No Glory and YouTube. You can also visit NoDiceNoGlory.com message boards to continue the conversation if you're feeling brave. Thank you so much for joining us this session.